Christy Osborne, welcome to the Compare to Who show.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here.
Well, great to meet you. We have a common
Likewise.
friend in Mary DeMuth, so
Oh,
I,
yay. She's the best.
she really is. And I've heard a lot about your work, and
Oh, really?
this
Oh,
is a
amazing.
conversation that I think has needed to happen on the show for a long time, but I didn't really know how to do it. And so
Yeah.
I am delighted for the opportunity to talk to you about this. Why don't you just start by telling us your story? Like, what
Yeah.
led you to this this whole
Yeah.
line of work?
Yeah. I'm a sobriety coach, and obviously I landed here because I struggled with my drinking. I like, if we want to go, I won't like take us too far back, but I obviously started drinking in high school, kind of like every other American kid. Although I never really got into it because I didn't like being out of control. I tried it, didn't taste good, wasn't really into it. Went on to college, joined a sorority. There was obviously like definitely my fair share of nights going out, but I was wanted to be a good student. I wanted to go to law school, and so I didn't ever like party too hard. I studied abroad here in London. So I live in London, England, which is so cool. During college, and I think like definitely that was one of the first times I saw my drinking increase a little bit, just because like you're trying to meet new people and you're kind of like an expat and all of these other things. Then I went on to law school, and that's where I really started to like give alcohol, I would call my first job, right? So it was to ease stress. I also met my now husband like right at the beginning of law school, and so drinking was a big part of our kind of like romance story together. We would share bottles of wine and wine tastes and all of that stuff. So it was definitely like to enhance connection, to enhance romance, and then also to ease the stress of like being a law student. We also did come back to London together during law school, and then we eventually like moved over here. He got a job offer, and went to work in Parliament after we graduated. And so it was again like the expat lifestyle. Everything is in a pub. You meet people in a pub, you work in pubs, like everything was in a pub. And then I started to have our kids, and that's when again, like, the drinking definitely increased. I definitely bought into the whole mommy wine culture thing. Like I thought that that was my reward. I thought it was my time to relax. It was definitely like the thing that I thought, was for me at the end of the day. Um, our second, we have two kids. They're 13 and 11 now. But when my son graced us with his presence, he was premature, and I suffered from really bad postpartum. And I just remember like, I remember at one point like hiding wine in my closet from a baby nurse that was helping me because we had no family here. And but didn't think anything of it, right? Didn't think like, let's talk about the postpartum. Just let's drink through it because being a mom is hard.
Yeah.
Um, and so then kind of everything was ticking along. And then in 2018, I lost my own mom. And it was a very complicated relationship because we were very, very, very close, and she had never had a drink in her life until I hit 26 years old. And then she started drinking, and it changed her personality and it changed our dynamic. And I never knew where I stood, including on the day that she passed away. Like I didn't know kind of where we were. And so I drank to cope with the grief of losing her, like losing the mom that I loved, but then also out of anger because of how could she basically drink herself to death and miss out on the lives of my kids, who she said she loved so much. And so it was just this like period from 2018 to 2020 where I was just like, I didn't really want to be home, or if I was home, had people over. Just numbing by drinking, being out, not focusing on my family, definitely not focusing on my marriage, definitely not focusing on Jesus. And so it wasn't until 2020, and it ended up being on the anniversary of her death. I woke up and I was just, I looked in the mirror in the bathroom and I was like, Jesus, I can't do this anymore. It wasn't like this huge rock bottom moment. Like I like to say, it was like, death by 1,000 paper cuts. I was just exhausted. I was exhausted. I knew my like marriage wasn't in a good place. I knew that like I had wanted the days with kids to go by as fast as they could to get to the bottle of wine. And I just knew it wasn't me, you know?
Yeah.
And so it was just like, part miracle. Well, I mean, I guess all miracle, right? Like I just, in that like moment, I didn't know what it meant. I definitely didn't think it was going to be a forever thing. I just thought like, okay, I need to take a break. I need to take a break from like drinking and see what happens. And as luck would have it, we went into lockdown 3 weeks later, and there was no place to go, and there's no one to talk to, which I speak with women all the time where it went the other way, right? Like there was nothing to do, so everyone just drank. But for me, it was like, okay, I don't have to see anybody. I don't have to explain myself. I don't have to say why I'm not drinking. I don't have to like answer the am I an alcoholic question. I don't have to answer that, is this forever? Come on, this is just a 30-day break, right? Like question. And I just got so curious about all the things that alcohol does to your brain and to your body. And as I was on this, like that, because of lockdowns and everything, and just like diving into the like anything I could get my hands on, and then of course like the Bible, reconnected with Jesus, like start like just reignited my faith again. And I started feeling so much better. I started feeling so strong. And then I just got to a point, I don't even know. Everyone always asks me, when did it happen? But like at some point in that first like 6 to 8 months, I was just like, I don't ever want to do that again. And then I just realized I really want to help other people that are struggling with this. And so then I became a coach.
I love it. I love it. Well, you found freedom and you're helping other people find freedom. So
Yeah.
I think that's
It's the
awesome.
best. Exactly what you do too.
Yeah. We take our pain, our issues, and
Yeah.
really turn them into a God story for other people too. I love that, Christy.
Yeah.
So is your book coming out is called So Jesus Drank Wine? Is that
No, so yeah, that's the podcast.
podcast? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so what do you do with
yeah.
that? Like what do you do with the pushback of, but moderation's okay? I mean, is
Yeah.
moderation the answer? How do
Well,
you
this is
go ahead.
this is the thing, right? So, what we're all chasing, like, well, I mean, not everybody, but like, I think the majority of people think that like, moderation is the holy grail. But what that fails to completely ignore, and this is what I learned that was so mind blowing for me, is that like alcohol is an addictive substance, and one drink calls for another drink. And like, we weren't designed to outsmart alcohol. We weren't designed to outsmart an addictive drug. Anybody can get hooked on it. It's kind of just a matter of time. And when you start to give alcohol jobs like I did, it's very, very, very difficult. You have to be a rainbow purple unicorn or whatever to be able to kind of go back to the place of, yeah, take it or leave it. I'll just have one, maybe, maybe not. Because you've given it a job, and you're up against a highly addictive substance.
Yeah, flesh that out a little bit more. Giving it jobs. I love that language, and I know
Yeah.
you alluded to it in your story. Can you kind of spell that out more for me?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, as I said, through my story, like I definitely was drinking for different reasons, right? And so this is the first thing I always do with clients is like, let's figure out your why. Why are you drinking? And it's really fun and funny because we seem to all be drinking for very similar reasons, as women, as mothers, as whether you're stay at home or you're working, whatever. It's for connection, it's for romance, it's for reward, it's for grief, it's to relax, it's to de-stress. And so what I like to do is go through with clients and figure out if those whys, if those jobs are really true or not. And I always say that like like the easiest one for me to figure out really fast was, I thought that I needed red wine to sleep at night. And then I stopped drinking and I read how alcohol hijacks your sleep. You're supposed to get 6 to 7 hours of REM sleep, but when you drink, you wind up getting 1 or 2. So while you're in bed, you might be comatose, but your brain's not properly shut off, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so that's why you're so exhausted. Even if you have just one drink, it screws with your sleep. So I was like, okay, well, now I'm sleeping properly and I know this information. I'm not going to drink to, sleep again. What's next? Right. And so
Yeah.
I had to go through all of those kind of reasons, all those whys, all those jobs. And the one that was the most difficult for me by far was I really believed that I needed alcohol to have fun.
Mm.
And that one took practice, right? It took practice of like going out with a small group of girlfriends to a restaurant and like it was weird
Yeah.
and not drinking and then going, to a smaller party and then a bigger party and then someone's birthday. And now it's just, oh my gosh, it's the best because you get to actually talk and laugh and connect and dance and do all the things without a hangover.
Yeah. Okay. So I have to confess something to you.
Let's do it.
I've never been a drinker. Like, I
Okay.
grew up that it was wrong. And then kind of have
Yeah.
to like wrestle through the like, okay, do I believe this? Or just like what I was
Yeah.
taught. And then, so I made it through. So similar path to you. I went to law school, but only for like a year. And then I was like, I've got to get back to work. I can't handle studying this much. But worked
Yeah.
on Capitol Hill. So I worked in politics. And as you know, I mean, like you said, like politics happens around
Yeah.
alcohol for sure.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
And so I made it through that season, no problem. Of course, I did have the people that thought I was an alcoholic in recovery. And I'm like, dude, I'm only like 21 right now. That's assuming a lot on my
Yeah.
teenage
Yeah.
years. But, I mean, I know that happens for some. I don't want to disparage that. But made it through those seasons okay. Like being able to
Yeah.
kind of stand up to what I would say was peer pressure, right?
Yeah.
Like you can't be having fun with us, you can't be here with us unless you're drinking. In grad school, I had a boyfriend who was in law school and totally dependent on alcohol and always was saying, I needed to take the edge off. I needed to take the edge off. And that kind of became my cringe statement of, oh, take the edge off. Like, oh, I can't handle
Yeah.
that whole
Yeah.
thing. But what I've noticed in the last, so my husband's a pastor, I've noticed in the last 15 or so years, I feel like I get more pressure from women in the church
Yeah.
around drinking than
Yeah.
I ever did when I worked
Yeah.
on Capitol Hill. And I worked in an office full of
That's
men.
wild. Yeah.
Like the guys would give me like, oh, okay, well, you'd probably be more fun if you had a drink, but no, it's okay. Stay here with us, like hang out. And I don't get invited to things because like, well, you don't drink wine, so you can't come. And so it's been fascinating for me just to watch that. It feels like there's such a I don't even know what word to put on it, but like a dependency, even among Christian women, where that is what's going to draw us all together. And it makes me sad because like I used to get when I go out with my friends, I was the one. They'd be like, "Okay, she's too drunk. She's got to go home." And they'd be like, "She doesn't drink. She hasn't had anything." And they're like, "Okay, well then she's got some other problems." So it's like, it shocks me that for Christian women, especially, this has become, I would say, like a stronghold, right? Where we believe this lie that it has to be necessary to have fun. I don't know. Like, how would you fill that out? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, that's why, when we were coming up with a name for the podcast, it was like, what have you heard like more often than not in a Bible study or at like a women's church thing, but Jesus drank wine. So, so that's why we kind of like came up with that title. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, we could go in so many different directions with this, right? Because the fact that like it is like quote unquote allowed, right, in the Bible, I think that means it takes on different meaning for different people. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's what's highest and what is best for you, And so, it's a real personal relationship too, right? And the problem, I think with with society and kind of on the whole is that there are one of two camps, right? It's either you're this like happy-go-lucky normal drinker, everything's fine, or you're an alcoholic.
Mhm.
And there hasn't until really recently. Now we're talking about the alcohol use disorder spectrum. We're talking about gray area drinking. We're talking about drinking, not drinking in the wellness space. Before that, it was like you're either A or B. And if
Right.
you're B, you're going to live a life of misery and missing out. And I feel so sorry for you. And that's what I thought too, right? Like,
Yeah.
I remember sitting with a margarita in Mexico somewhere and saying to a girlfriend, like on spring break, can you imagine what it would be like not to be able to drink? What if we were an alcoholic? How horrible would that be? Right.
Yeah.
And it's just, so I think from that mindset, it's hard to then question, like, okay, well, maybe like my life would just be better without it. Maybe my relationships would be better without it. Maybe my sleep would be better without it, as opposed to, am I this drinker, or am I this drinker?
Right. Right. Yeah. What's the real cost and what's the real benefit? Like that makes sense to me. Um, yeah, as I think about my people, like women listening to this show, I, I love how you said that you didn't want to overdrink at a younger age because of control, right? And so
Yeah.
control is kind of part of a lot of us that have had disordered eating disorder
Yeah.
issues, right? Control.
Yeah.
But what I see a lot is, I'm going to say, saving calories or like redirecting calories. Like I
Oh,
need
yeah.
my alcohol.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm gonna not eat or like eat as little
Yeah.
as possible, and I'm gonna make those calories are just coming from my wine or whatever drink I want to have at the end of the day. And
Yeah.
there's obviously some health repercussions to that,
Yeah.
in
Oh,
addition
yeah.
to just not
No.
feeling good, right? Yeah. Have you
Oh,
seen
yeah.
that too? Go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, well, I suffered with that for sure.
Yeah.
Suffered with that for sure. I definitely struggled with disordered eating. I feel like for a lot of years. And at the end of my drinking career, it was very much like, eat as little food as possible to be able to maximize the alcohol content, while also trying to like drop massive amounts of weight.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, and that's it. I love the term disordered eating, because now people have started to use it with drinking as well. So disordered drinking, because it just, I don't know, when I heard the word disordered drinking, I was like, oh, I like that. Like that makes sense too. And so
Yeah.
it's just a great way of saying that there's other ways of, I think, thinking about this, looking at this, labeling this. If you eat, I mean, no one even has to label anything, but you know what I mean?
Right.
But yeah, I definitely struggled with that. And I talked to a lot of women that do too, because of all the reasons you have this podcast, right?
Yeah. Well, it feels like, okay, so these are just like pursuits that, like you said, we all got something we're chasing. That's not Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We all are in a fight, a temptation with something, whether it's food, whether it's alcohol, whether it's weight loss, right? Like like some of us are just chasing a better body at the
Yeah. Yeah.
exemption of some of these other things. But what have you found happened, like when you stopped? Like what replaced it? Like what capacity did you get back?
Yeah, so much mental headspace and capacity, like with just that got filled with peace and freedom. Because when you're not, like you said you've never been a drinker, but like if you have, or you've been, someone that's constantly trying to moderate your drinking, that takes up so much time and headspace. And then if you're just drinking like with no cares to the wind, like I was, then you're just, yeah, there's a lot of headspace that gets taken up from like having to be hungover and all of that stuff. So, so much peace, freedom, not having to think about any of that. And then one of my favorite things too is just my joy came back online. Because when you're drinking, you get dopamine, obviously, like a smack of dopamine when you have a drink. But God created us so that like we're supposed to function at homeostasis. So when we get an artificial level of dopamine, which means higher than normal, we get another chemical called dynorphin, and that's a depressant, and that brings us down. And when you're a regular drinker, you've got that dynorphin just in there all the time. And I always joke, I felt like I was looking back, I was like Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh, right? Like I was just like, nothing was really ever making me happy. The only thing I could look forward to was the glass of wine.
Yeah.
And when that all leveled out, and I was like, oh my gosh, like it's like everything just like came back in like full color almost,
Yeah.
right? Like the like beautiful sunny days and my kids laugh and like just the everyday good
Mhm.
stuff that God's blessed me with. I was like, oh, I'm like, this is amazing. Like I get to find joy in this now and not just chasing this dopamine spike.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so what about the hard angle of it though? I mean, in addition to, and I'd love to hear more about how like how hard it was for you just to actually say no or I'm not
Yeah.
drinking. But what about sitting with the feelings? You know,
Yeah.
some of the stuff that you've been numbing. Can you fill that out a little bit more for me?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I, it took me a really, really long time to realize that I had to sit with all of that with regard to my mom, um, to forgive and to process and to talk through things, obviously, with family and just get to a point. And I actually, this is going to make me cry, but I actually have her Bible. And so, and she was a extremely devout Christian. Like we were raised going to church. And so just having her Bible like really helped me because I realized this is the person that she was. It wasn't the person at the end. That person was lost. I know I'm going to see her again.
Yeah.
And all of that stuff was the stuff that like allowed me to finally heal, right? Because it's not over for us. I get to tell her all about what I'm doing now, and so yeah, I had to remove the alcohol to realize all that.
Yeah. Yeah. I know she'd be very proud of you.
Oh,
Yeah. So as a sobriety coach, like how is that different than like what level are you working with women at? Is it the woman that's like, okay, I'm recognizing I'm an alcoholic, or I know it's not that black and white, like you said, there's a spectrum,
yeah.
but who's your target?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, this is the thing. It's got to be a fit, right? Like I'm sure you find with the ladies you coach too. I'm very, very big on grace and compassion. I don't think that you have to label yourself. I just want to work with someone that's open and is ready to stand in personal responsibility and wants to learn and grow out of curiosity. Like I do not work with anybody that is physically like needs to go to a facility to
Okay.
dry out, physically dependent.
Yeah.
But as long as they're willing to talk about their alcohol use and they want to address it and they're open, um, I love to talk to ladies about that. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. And you have a book coming out.
Yeah. Well, apparently, if Mary's listening to this, she's gonna laugh. But apparently, traditional publishing takes a million
It
years
does.
because
It
it's
does.
in
Yes, I know.
September 24.
Okay, so a year from now, but
Yeah.
podcasts live forever. So someone might be listening to this in September 24. They'll be able to go get it today. Yeah. And what's the book about?
So it's love. Well, the working title, right, is Love Life Sober, Find Freedom from Alcohol in 40
Okay.
Days. And so there's biblical truth and encouragement and practical coaching tips, and then like my own story and story of clients kind of interwoven through a 40-day book. So I'm really, really excited about it. Although I turned in the manuscript like a month ago and now I'm like, what is right?
I hear you. And then you get the edits back and you'll be like, did I write that? Really? Was that?
That's
Yeah.
definitely gonna happen.
Yeah. Well, my book that's coming out in December is a 40-day book as well. And let me
Oh, cool.
oh, this 40-day books are a beast. I did a 30-day that's coming out next April, but the 40-day one, yeah, I don't.
I'm
It's
so
a project.
excited. What is
Yeah,
it called?
it's called the 40-day body image workbook. It's
Oh, nice.
help for
I like
Christian
it.
women who've tried everything.
Oh, good one. I like that. Well,
Yeah.
I'll definitely get that because I mean, again, it's really funny. Like when I stopped drinking and I put all the beliefs that I had about alcohol to bed, I
Mhm.
realized that the next thing I had to do was like put all the beliefs about my body to bed, right? And like
Yeah.
ditch weighing myself, get rid of the scale, stop dieting, all of that stuff.
Good. Yeah.
And I actually have a couple women that I'm working with right now who like we we got alcohol out of the way pretty early and now we're just dealing with body. And I'm like, it's funny because I'm sure you've heard this expression, like share from your scars, not your wounds. Like, I think the body image stuff it's something you have to face every day, because
Yeah.
unlike alcohol, which you can remove from your life altogether, you cannot remove food and you
Right.
cannot remove mirrors.
Right. Right.
So it's
Or
something, yeah,
size
that we,
tags and clothing. Right.
yeah, or size tags and clothing. So yeah, so I mean, I think that's something that I don't know. Do you feel like now I'm interviewing you? Do you
Yeah,
feel like you're fully free?
I do. But see, I think that's nuanced.
Yeah,
In fact,
yeah,
the episode that came out on the day we're recording this show is about like a little setback I had a week ago when I was with
yeah,
my family. And it was like all the things came flooding back. And, and I feel like being free is having the resources to know what to do when you're tempted to struggle.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
kind of how I
yeah,
define it. So
yeah,
yeah, absolutely feel like I don't obsess anymore. And like you were saying with wine and with alcohol in general, like that
yeah,
headspace for me
yeah,
was headspace like, how am I going to make my body smaller? What do I need to do,
yeah,
to like not eat today? Or what do I need to do
yeah,
to
yeah,
exercise more
yeah,
than I eat today? Like those kinds of things.
yeah. Oh my
So
gosh. Aren't you so happy we never have to think like that again?
yes, yes. I mean,
Yeah.
and that's one of the things in my book is like the 40-day book that's coming out. It's like sometimes it's uncomfortable to think about having all that free
Yes,
space
yes,
back, right? At
yes,
first,
yes.
it's like,
Yeah,
whoa, what do I
yeah,
think
yeah,
about if I don't think
yeah,
about this? Kind of like you said with going out with friends, like how do I relate if I don't relate through this? It's very much the same with food and body stuff. It's like this is how women talk to each other. Like this is the
yeah,
conversations we have with each other. It's either about wine, right?
yeah,
It's about getting that drink at the end of the day that you deserve, quote unquote, as a mom, or it's about what food are we going to restrict, or
yeah.
what new
I
exercise are we
know.
going to try.
I know.
Like, aren't we more interesting than that? Like, shouldn't we be?
I think we are. I think we really are. I think we really are.
Yeah. Well, so what has happened? Just to kind of circle back, like what has happened in your personal relationships with friends that have kind of watched you walk through this? How have they responded?
Yeah, so it's so funny because when the March 2020, when I just, was going to go on this break that I didn't know if it had an end or whatever, I was standing in the shower and I was listing literally friend by friend
Mm,
who, like, I was like, okay, well, that person is probably going to be okay. We might just have to figure out something else to do besides drinking. That person I probably will never see again. This
mhm.
person, no, so I was really wrapped up in that for sure. And
Yeah.
it's so funny how God works, right? Because it wound up being like the biggest blessing of my life. He took people out. He literally took them out of England and moved them, or like, just, it was wild. And I know who my people are. Um, I can count them on one hand, and I think that's amazing. Um, and I don't know if I answered the question, but it did. It changed the
Yeah.
relationships, I think, for the better, for sure.
Yeah. So, pardon me if I'm going too deep here.
You're good.
Like, is there a sadness, or was there a sadness that came with recognizing that, hey, our relationship was just around
Oh yeah.
drinking?
Yes. Yeah. 100%. 100%. And it took a little bit of time. Some of them still sting. There's a couple people that still, like, I'll hear about something that I know I would have gotten invited to, if I had still been drinking. But then I put myself in this place of, do I want to be at that dinner table? Right. And I don't, because of the conversations are exactly what we just said. It's about drinking and restricting and all these other things that I just feel like we are more intelligent than that. Like,
Yeah.
and we have better things to do, and we're called to talk about other things. And so I mean, not drinking changed my whole life. And that was one of the things, right? It gave me purpose. It sorted out my priorities. And so, yeah, of course, like, I'm a human person, like, my
Yeah.
feelings get still hurt, but the people that I truly want to spend time with, I do.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, I feel like even for women that maybe are listening today that didn't have a problem with alcohol, but were so like submerged in the dieting language, the restricting language, the exercise, when you come out of it, it's the same kind of thing. It's wait, that's something we Like all you had to
Yeah.
talk about was weight loss or like trying a
Yeah.
new workout. Like so it's a real grief, I think,
Yeah.
when you
Yeah.
recognize, oh wait, that wasn't what I thought it was. There's something
Yeah.
there's something missing. Yeah.
Yeah. It's sad too because that's and that right and then that and comparison and gossip and all of that stuff it's the easy automatic connector, right? When you it's not until you like kind of do away with all that fluff that you realize that how to actually connect with someone, which
Yeah.
is why it's so interesting that people say that alcohol helps them connect, right? Because how can you connect with someone if you're talking utter nonsense and you don't
Yeah.
remember it,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Is there some science there? Like, is it a false sense of connection, like the dopamine hit or whatever? Like, is there some science behind that? I'm just curious.
Yeah, no, well, I mean, it turns off your ability to make memories. Like,
Okay.
so it switches off the part of your brain in the hippocampus that like stores the memories. So that's part of it. And it obviously completely lowers your inhibitions. So
Sure.
you end up saying things, right? And you don't, and it does stuff, when you try to make promises to yourself about not saying things or whatever, and your prefrontal cortex, like all that goes out the window when when you're drinking. So yeah, it's like, I have a client right now who will go out or used to go out and then she wouldn't be able to like see the people for like weeks after because she's like, I spilled my soul, but I didn't mean to, right?
Mhm.
It's like,
Yeah.
so yeah, I don't know if that answered the question.
Yeah. Okay. Last question, because I just foresee some people listening thinking, but how's my husband going to respond?
Oh
How
yeah,
was
it's a good
that for
one.
you?
Yeah, so I mean, Chris was the first person that I told,
Mhm.
and I just said I just need alcohol not to be in the house, like not even not to be in the house. We actually didn't take it out of the house, but we just said we wouldn't drink in the house for a little bit. And he, as a result of me not drinking, has cut back like immensely.
Mhm.
He will have a drink at like we were at a wedding recently and he had a drink, but he doesn't drink at home anymore, really. But that is a massive, massive sticking point and concern for so many women that I talk to. We actually did a podcast episode on it, but I learned that no one's going to take advice that they don't ask for, right?
Mhm.
And if people don't want to change their drinking, like you cannot make them. And I had my own coach tell me this, and I still tried. Right, I kicked and screamed and cried, and I was like, "Just stop altogether."
Mhm.
Everybody has to go on their own journey because everybody's drinking for different reasons,
Yeah.
and everyone has to figure out those reasons for themselves. And so the best thing you can do is be compassionate and lead by example. It's so much easier said than done,
Mhm.
but yeah, it is a tricky one. It is tricky, especially if your like entire relationship and bond is over alcohol, which ours was too.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. So good. I'll try to throw the link to that specific episode in the show
Okay,
notes
cool.
for people to
Yeah.
find it because I know that'll be a big question for some. Well, Christy, it's been a delight to have you on the show today. Tell everyone where they
Thank
can connect with
you.
you. I'm assuming you work with clients virtually.
Oh yes, yeah.
Okay. So tell everyone where they can connect with you and how they can connect if this is an area they want to reach out and maybe get some help in.
Yeah, sure. So it's lovelifesober.com and I'm on Instagram at lovelifesober with Christy, Christy. I try to offer encouraging, tips and stuff there every single day. So that's really active on Instagram. I have lots of free resources there. I have a really short video masterclass on how to beat a wine craving on my website as well. So there's lots of good resources to get you started if you're not ready to like have a face-to-face yet. But definitely do reach out if you are.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much. I'll put the links to all of that in the show notes. Well, Christy,
Thank
it's been a pleasure
you.
getting to know you a little bit better. Thanks again for
Thank
being on.
you.
And
Of
thank you.
course.
Thank you for watching or listening today. I hope something today has helped you stop comparing and start living. Bye bye.